Okay, Illustrator. When you first open Adobe Illustrator, it's a little confusing because it gives you sort of a variation of things you can start with. You can start with things that relate to what could be used for iPhone use, postcards, letter size, all these different things. And usually starts with pixels, and you can change it to inches or millimeters. So what we'll do, I'll just give you a little quick demo again. I did a little bit on the t-shirt, but just a couple ideas in terms of how to set up a file. So you go up here to create a new file, and I'll go ahead and say create, and it might start off with this, and then over here in this form here, this is called an artboard. This is an artboard, okay? So I can now change the size of my artboard. Now you see up here it started with a default of points. Now I'm going to go ahead and change under preferences, document setup. I'm going to change this to, it can be points, pixels, inches, feet. For my audience, since you guys are probably dealing with millimeters, I'll just make it into millimeters. I'm also used to working with millimeters. And I say, okay, so now all my references to dimensions up here will be in millimeters. So as I change the size of this, the height and width to whatever I want, this also changes. So let's say as an example, if I want the width to be 150 millimeters by 150 millimeters, that's my 150 millimeters, okay? That's my artboard. So then if I go into, again, add this, so that's my artboard. When I set up now to use my pen tool, this is my pen, as I mentioned, you anchor here, and you can pull. So as you on the left click on my mouse, and pull it out here, and I can just sway it and do this. And it's a wonderful tool, obviously. Now it's very different from this than Photoshop. So I can create any shape I want to create, okay? And then I can fill it, as we discussed in the t-shirt part, with any color. So I can make the inside red. I have an infinite amount of colors here. And then I can change the outside, change proportions here. And I can also give it a, with these keys down here, I can also give it the, change the actual, let's say go green just for fun. Stroke path increase, and there's my green. So I can change this. Now, this is sort of the basics of Illustrator in terms of doing any kind of graphic work. Some of the work that gets a little more involved is I can actually go back in here and I can get involved in changing shades, dark to lights. I can change on, let's see, this side over here, back to this side, here, do this. I can then go to a mode where I've got, and I can use these functions on this side, so I can actually change. Let's say I'll go to the center of it, go here. I can actually do a gradation. And then on this function over here, I can actually change how I want that gradation to be affected. I can add more pieces of gradation. I can add colors. So if you're looking at anything in a professional publication process, there's no doubt it's probably being used with Illustrator, okay? So that's basically sort of a basic function. Get set up, get your size. I always under view, I always put, I get my rulers. So under rulers, I will show rulers at the top. So again, with millimeters, this is where this is. if I want to have a specific size, let's say I want to do something within, have a large format, say something, and I want to create within a certain size, I just pick from the outside ruler. If I grab out the ruler, I can actually grab lines here, and these are my guides. So I can simply add physical lines to this. So if I wanted something, let's say within a certain size, 40 millimeters, something in here, or length, I could give myself these guides. Then on the second page, as I add more layers on this side over here in the corner, I can then put whatever my design is inside these parameters. So I can stay with it. And if I'm over a little bit, it doesn't matter because I can actually grab the select tool and actually bring them in. So if I have a very specific size I want to attain to, like we did with the t-shirts, because I want to make sure it fit not just the t-shirt template, but also the fact that we're going to print these on 8.5 by 11. See, so you can actually bring things in this side here. And as I mentioned before, there's also text that Illustrator does. And this text, again, has an infinite amount of styles, fonts, but just so I'm going to show you, just to make sure we understand the difference between vector lines. So a vector line basically means if I get close to this, if I really, basically take the tool and I'm going to get really close, and the closer I get, no matter how close I get to this, it's still going to be a line. See that? I can get really, really, really close. So this is called a vector. Okay. And what's great about a vector is it doesn't really kind of carry your proportions in a sense. So I can make it big or small, and it still stays very, very accurate. Okay. Now that's Illustrator. I mean, obviously, if you have questions, we can talk. I can send me emails. Obviously, there's tutorials on this kind of thing, but that's just sort of a basic introduction to Illustrator. Now, because I mentioned the word vector, just so we have a difference, you have an understanding of the difference in a vector and a raster. Now, a raster is Photoshop, and I'd like to think you might have some experience with Photoshop, but I'll quickly show you just something in Photoshop. Let's say I went to this. I like the fact that I've been introduced to the Adobe, the plant, so I actually want to make a painting myself. So I really appreciate your creativity and your direction. But the difference between, let's say, a vector and a raster is when I get here, everything is pixels, right? So everything here gets fuzzy, but it's going to be based off of little dots, right? There, see, so as we get close, you see all the little the little squares. Well, that's a raster, okay? So the raster obviously has issues because if you get too close, don't have the right resolution, then obviously it gets real fuzzy. So you have to be very conscious of the quality and the resolution. Whereas in a vector, our Illustrator friend, it's not so, it's just different that way. And then how do I acquired these different tools? Photoshop, these are Adobe tools. And what I did, Adobe Cloud, Creative Cloud. So on the Adobe, you have what's called, everything now is obviously everything in software is all in the cloud someplace in the server. And so what I do, because I use Photoshop and Illustrator and even some of the other programs, I use this one here. It's called Creative Cloud. And this has all the Adobe apps, all the Adobe functions. So you can either buy Adobe, Photoshop by itself, and this is $10 a month, $9.99 a month. Excuse me, that's, okay. Photoshop can be $20 a month, depends on the level of professional use. Illustrator, which I use both of those. And Premiere Pro is actually a video and film editing. My son uses this one. This is also a very powerful tool. InDesign is a tool used for, let's say, basically publishing. If you're going to do a book or a magazine, using InDesign is a setup for publishing works. And this is the total amount of ones you get if you get the total package. So the total package, Creative Cloud, which is all that, is $52 a month. And I think you get an extra person. You get 2 people, what we call seats. So I can use it and somebody else can use it. So like my son will use it or one of my friends will use it on occasion. Or if you're just looking for Illustrator, then Illustrator is $20 a month. So that's basically just a brief introduction to Illustrator software. That's how I did the t-shirts, and just a reference to know that that's called a vector technology versus a raster, which is the Photoshop. So just a couple quick things. Obviously, if it might require more questions, please give me a text, or we can do the Zoom, and I can do maybe even do some Zoom demos too. I could actually, if you get together, I could actually show you from our side. I could do a Zoom class. I think would be very appropriate too. But this is something we can discuss. So hopefully this helped, and we'll be in touch.